here is Omini Oden to take a look at the papers with us this morning. Good morning to you, Omini.
Good morning, Blessing. Good morning, Kingsley. Good morning, Nigerians.
Right. Okay, let's kick off with the Daily Trust. So I have for the Daily Trust something running through almost all the papers as well. That is a photograph of the front page of the Daily Trust forms a story talking about Jonathan's government won gold medal in corruption, Tinubu says. Well, this was part of a speech at a book presentation that took place in Abuja on Thursday. And that's also the photograph you have on the front page of the Independent newspaper. And also the lead story. Buhari prepared for the worst during medical vacation. This is a story credited to Vice President Yemi Osinbajo. 3 riders. Tinubu advises him to heed calls for true federalism. Says Jonathan government won gold medal in corruption. And the president says he's not done with treasury looters. Kingsley?
Well, that story, which comes from the book launched yesterday at the presidential villa, is also the lead for the Authority newspaper. And the Authority has it like this with a kicker. Buhari to appointees. Steal public fund, go to jail. 2 riders. President doing well, says Odigi Oyegu, who is chair of the APC, and Jonathan, most corrupt Nigerian leader. That's according to Tinubu. Now, the story, it's also there on the front page of the blueprint with a photograph, and it says, steal and go to jail, Buhari tells government officials. With a rider, Chibok girls will be released soon. And then you have the photograph of some of the dignitaries who were present at the book launch yesterday. Now, it's also there on the front page of the Punch newspaper, above the nameplate, one of 2 headlines above the name flag of the Punch newspaper. Do more to address Nigerians' suffering, Tinubu tells Buhari. And that story is in greater detail on page 7.
Yes, yesterday at the public presentation of what most of the papers described as a 360-page book that chronicles the midterm scorecard of the present administration led by Muhammadu Buhari. The president gave assurance to Nigerians that the onslaught on corrupt officials is ongoing, and that he will sustain what they promised to do. He made mention of the fact that they have tackled Boko Haram insurgency, and for the economy, he says it is work in progress, and that he will repay Nigerians the goodwill they offered to him during this time of ailment, and that whatever it is unfolding and the nation is moving forward. The keynote speaker, chieftain of APC, Shiwaju Ahmed Bola Tinubu, in his keynote dwelt on a number of issues, and one of it is that he called on Mr. President to do more to address Nigerian sufferings through the policies churned out by the federal government. But he spoke to the need for true federalism and the fact that squandering of the nation's commonwealth by the previous administration, but the APC government is doing everything to upturn that record, and a couple of other comments. But the papers clearly said the book more or less was a midterm review of the present administration.
All right, Tomine, thanks a lot there. The other story that we also have on the front pages of the 3 papers that I have, 2 of them actually, not 3, that's the Punch. It's a lead story for the Punch, it's a story out of Harare. 93-year-old Mugabe resists military pressure to resign. The details of that story can be found on page 10. But then there is a photograph there splashed on the front page showing to the right side of, you can see that that's General Constantino Chiwenga, who is the commander of the defense forces. Mugabe himself is there together with the 2 envoys from South Africa. Of course, they had meetings. It was the first time that Mugabe and the commander of the defense forces were meeting since the military struck on Tuesday. So, but negotiations are going on, but the headline, according to the Punch, is 93-year-old Mugabe resists military pressure to resign. Now, that's the lead story also for Blueprint. Blueprint says, stalemate in Zimbabwe, Mugabe still under house arrest. I would give up power, says 93-year-old leader. He is safe, military assures. That's on page 6. But the fact that, of course, he left his private residence yesterday to go to the State House for that meeting.
Okay, that story on Zimbabwe is also from page of Daily Trust, but first you'll find more details on page 41. But it says Mugabe in talks over his future. That story, like I said, is on page 41. And, well, quickly, you might not be able to see that immediately. Still in line with Zimbabwe's story, Zimbabwe crisis is confusing. This is coming from the United Nations chief, Antonio Guterres. More details, like I said, on page 41. Quickly now to other stories that we have. For the Daily Trust, leading for the Daily Trust this morning, Maina, that's a former chairman of the Presidential Task Force on Pension Reform, Abdulrashid Maina, writes to appear before House of Reps panel. Starts right there but continues on page 5. Okay, anyone on the House of Reps?
Yeah, the House of Reps story is it's also on the front page of Punch newspaper, and just below it's at the foot of the front page, by the way. It says Mena, that's the kicker, that's the what is also been referred to sometimes as the Mena Gate. Reps to question Dambazau, AGF, and HOS on live telecast. That story is on page 9 in greater detail of the Punch newspaper. But you also have a story related to that, but not exactly on the Mena Gate. It's on the front page of Blueprint. Let's bring in Omini now to discuss some of these details.
Yeah, before we go to Zimbabwe, let's take off from Nigeria. The House of Representatives has concluded. The ad hoc committee says they will start the public hearing or investigation into the Mena Gate, specifically on bordering on how it was reinstated into the public service. And the resolution is that everything will be done on national TV, specifically on the network service of the NTA. And the lineup of top government officials to appear include the acting chairman of the EFCC, ICPC, the Minister of Interior, Attorney General and Minister of Justice, and the head of the Civil Service of the Federation. Maina, the prime suspect or the major person in the whole thing, has offered to come out from hiding to testify before the panel on public TV. So agitations are ripe, who are willing to, and the analysis are clear that it's an unfolding story, just like we described what is happening in Zimbabwe as an unfolding story. The papers have various angles to it. Some say it's a stalemate, some say he resists handover of power, insisting that he must officially hand over at the appropriate time. Some say he has accepted and there's going to be an interim government that will conduct election on the date of election, independence of Zimbabwe in April next year. So there are various angles to it, but like we said yesterday, it's a developing story, and in a couple of days it will know how it transpires.
All right. Well, I mean, well, that's to say that the negotiations are ongoing.
Exactly, exactly.
Just to give him a soft landing. Otherwise, he's lost effective control of the country. But there are other headlines, of course, you will see on
But I think there's a lot of commendation on the South African development community for the effort so far. They have been there.
Quickly,
yes.
Yeah, but it's just before we sign you off, just to say that there are other stories, some tragedy in Lagos yesterday.
Yes.
And also in the Lagos area, by the way, it's there on the front page of the Punch newspaper. Above the nameplate, it says 9 killed as train hits truck in Lagos and vehicles crash in Ogun. Details of that story can be found on pages 4 and 5. And then there are other stories, as we indicated, that you'll find.
For that, your other story too, 13 dead were recorded for independent papers.
The pictures about that tragic incident, they're quite graphic, because some of those who died are those who hang on the train. When the train came on a headlong collision with the truck, they were just killed instantly.
So that's most unfortunate.
Yes.
We would like to thank you for being here. We hope you enjoy your weekend.
I wish you same too.
While we continue with the rest of Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you so much.
All right, so we take a short break now. When we return, we have 2 issues for discussion. We'll be going over to our team of correspondents who are spread around Anambra State to get a feedback from them as to what is happening. Just about less than 24 hours now before voters go to the polls there in Anambra. Plus, the NDDC, what's going on?